The Close Weekly brings you the most actionable advice for today's real estate market. We'll unpack what you need to know to move the needle in your business in a real way. This podcast is brought to you by Premier Real Estate Agent Training Program, The Close Pro. Go to theclose.com/podcast to learn more and to get $25 off. Now, here's your host, the man who has been a top producing agent for over 25 years, Sean Moudry.
Hello, it's Sean Moudry, and we are back with the Close Weekly podcast. And this week, we have an outstanding guest, Nicole Mickle from Orlando, Florida. Good morning, Nicole.
Good morning. How are you, Sean?
I'm great. And the reason that we invited Nicole on today is Nicole has a very unique way that she built her real estate business. And in fact, she's getting eyeballs from all over the country and probably the world for her unique marketing style. And it just caught our attention, and we thought this is somebody that we can learn a lot from. And so we want to bring her on the podcast today. So getting started, remember, right now we are talking about 2022 trends and what trends should the real estate agents be keeping an eye out for in 2020. So Nicole, why don't you go ahead and start off and tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been in real estate, and maybe something unique that you'd love to share with the listeners.
Okay. So Nicole Mickle, based out of Orlando, born and raised here, yay. But I've been in real estate for 25 years in some shape or form, but I've probably migrated from one facet, from starting in banking to mortgage broker, title, closing company I own for over like 15 years. And then I became a transaction coordinator for one of the top short sale companies. And when I got my license, just to be in compliance, never with the intent to sell.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it's just like, okay, get your license. You've been doing this just in case you say something that may just be too in depth from being a transaction person. And it kind of morphed into one of the clients were like, no, we want you to represent us. And I'm like, no, I can't do that. And it was like, no, we already know your license. We already looked you up. So yeah, you're going to represent us. And that's how I was the first transaction for me as a real estate agent.
So you were like the accidental real estate agent.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Never with intent.
Interesting. So how long have you been practicing real estate full time then?
I would probably say 7 years.
Okay.
But more intentional 5 years. Meaning like with a strategy for marketing. Mm-hmm. I honed in on that specific 5 years, probably, dabble here and there with Instagram. And Instagram was kind of like a fluke. It wasn't even supposed to be something. But I just knew that I had been in this industry for so long. So people didn't see me as a real estate agent. They only saw me as a finance girl. So the only way I could generate some business was offline.
So let's get into that then. So 5 years ago, you decided, hey, I've got to take this career seriously, right? Correct. And you chose to walk us through that. So because a lot of real estate agents, I think, are in that place, right? They want to have more success. They want to increase their business, but they just don't know what to do. And so at that point for you, explain to us that thought process and how you solved that.
Okay. So I'm going to be honest, I love marketing, always have loved marketing. That was something innate in me. So I utilized that. I'm like, okay, let me see how I'm going to break this down. And I'm trying to give people action items on how to think about this. Not be, the influencer on Instagram, but think about how you can solve somebody's problems. So you'll hear all the time, you have to be on here. You have to do video. Hey, you can do video, not physically be there, because everybody doesn't feel comfortable doing video. And I'm not saying that if that's something you want to do and you're excellent at it, perfect. But maybe in the beginning, you just kind of break down what problems are your clients asking you. And this is what I did. I had no strategy. I didn't know to post 5 times a day and all this, 6 Insta stories with 10 hashtags. Like, that didn't matter. So the algorithm doesn't matter for me because I'm only talking to my 4 or 5 clients I'm talking to on the phone. This is how it started. Once I had those problems, I would write them down every day. And then I would say, I'm getting this same question over and over again. So let me share it in a way that I could potentially, maybe effectively show somebody visually with something that's eye-catching. But the caption is where I'm writing about what I feel about or how I want to educate someone.
Oh, this is awesome. So when you said a problem, you meant specifically a problem that a customer, potential customer,
mm-hmm.
And now you're in Orlando, Florida, correct? So
Correct.
Is this specific to Orlando, specific to real estate in general?
It could be anything from, hey, I've been looking online and Orlando's growing really fast. Where is this place or where is that place? Because when you look up and type Orlando real estate, that's typically our core center part of Orlando. But most people migrate into the suburbs that they don't even know about, that don't have municipalities. So that's another thing you could educate people on. And I'm doing a whole big dive for 2022 on community education. So it's tons of content you could use for that.
To be a little more specific, if give us an example of one, but maybe your favorite post or one of the posts that maybe got a lot of recognition. Can you give us some examples on that?
I could probably say the problems led to me sharing the story of a client and how I helped them, because those became the most effective. And that's when I started to take off with people interviewing me, asking me questions, and telling the Just Soul story. And I'm going to tell you this for the first time. I've never shared this. Many of my clients would not get on social media with the key or the happy Just Soul. So I had to come up with a way that would be okay with them, because most of them are introverts, very similar to me. And I did that strategically to go after those people who don't want to see an agent online. And they came to me because I was doing something a little bit different. But I would put the Just Soul story on there, and it would tell the process from the beginning. And typically it's like a case study. What happened in the beginning? The problem. How I help them through that situation, their situation, not me being a great agent, them and their situation, and a conclusion of how they're happy now living in Orlando or now living in the home of their dreams.
Oh, that was wonderful. That's exactly what our listeners need to hear, is like, how do you put it together? Because, like you said, there's so many different opinions on how to do things, but just like, what's the basic concept? Now, I went to your website and I checked you out, and you have a massive blog on your website with just amazing amounts of information. Are you reusing the same content, or is that a separate endeavor for you? Like specifically like your blog, those kind of things.
Okay, so the blog is completely different. At first, so the blog was kind of created through me playing around on Pinterest and me learning SEO. So when I wanted to start to get Pinterest recognition, it was just like, okay, people are engaging with this content and I don't know why. I had to reverse engineer it. And then the things that they were connecting to on Pinterest is kind of like how I created these blog posts, which are horrific on NicoleMickle.com. They're just not pretty blog posts. So in the blogger world, they laugh at me when I met up with them. And so it's like two different things. They're like, you real estate people are really different, that you guys think this is great information. And I learn a lot from other people that's outside of the industry. And I think more people should do that, because we can kind of get more of a candid approach, or maybe a different approach that could connect to people. But that's when I started the FloridaHomesAndLiving.com, because I didn't want to make it about real estate, because the things that they were looking at and engaging with had nothing to do with buying a house. Mm-hmm. It all took a part about, how do I develop this house? How do I create this lifestyle? And now it's starting to do something different within the real estate realm. So I had to take a few steps back, and I'm weird, so that's not normal, but that blog does support what people are looking for, but then it becomes shareable information. So if they don't buy a house, somebody else may buy.
Yeah, that's what I noticed about it is going through it. It wasn't all about just buying or selling. You had a lot of tips about design. You had a download on there that was, I think, about maybe
Refreshing.
decorating. What was it?
Yeah, but that's Florida Homes and Living. So what happened was you initially started out on Nicole Mickle, and we put you there at the other site. We make you go back and forth.
Oh, interesting.
Try to confuse you, Sean, but yeah. So the decorating component of it is what drove, I think, the Instagram initially.
Okay.
And that's where it became shareable. And then out of those shareable, 25, 35 people, one person wanted to buy a house. So then they become part of your nurturing feed that may not buy right this second. But then I do get people that's like, hey, I've been following you for a year. I'm flying down from Canada in December. Can I buy a house with you? We're not having this conversation about, hey, I'm great. Hey, I'm doing this. It's basically like they've been following your resume online and they come to you with a whole different approach that they're grateful for you to work with them. And for me, that's the success.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is your strategy is a little different than some other people's strategy. Like I interviewed Eric Simon, who is with the Broke Agent, and he is an Instagram expert. And his strategy is much more about getting the eyeballs and getting the views. It sounds like your strategy is much more about content creation and developing kind of a relationship about real estate, right? Design, I think you had on there some tips on how to buy a home, those kind of things that were very specific.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but most times my client that I'm looking to connect to isn't looking for budget friendly things. A lot of times they're looking for things that they just want. It's, post pandemic, people would reach out to me and they say, I come to this page because it calms me down in the day. I watch your pool videos. So I noticed my pool videos were getting 15 million views. And I'm like, why are they watching this 15-second video like this? This is weird. And then I would get emails and that level of connection made me be more intentional with what I was doing versus volume related. And I could be more volume related like I was early on in my career. But right now, I feel like I'm doing an additional service for people that may not be able to be provided because we're moving too fast.
Yeah. So one of the things I've noticed is when you do the type of marketing that you're doing, your client intent to purchase or intent to sell is a lot higher. The lead is a lot higher. Where, if you're doing Facebook marketing, the intent of the lead seems to be really, some people are just click on it because they think the picture's pretty. But what you're saying is when they're reaching out to you, they're ready. They're ready to buy or sell, and they're not interviewing agents. They've already made their choice.
No, they've already made their choice. And they're saying like, you interacted with me, you always answered my questions. And I'm not really putting like, hey, let me get you into my database. They put themselves in my database. Mm-hmm. So I'm fanning out, like how you said, the home refresh. That's something that everybody can do in their own home with or without me, right? But for them to ask me to come into my world and join me, it's a different relationship being established if they sign up.
And when you say sign up, you mean to your newsletter?
To the newsletter.
Okay.
Because they're taking down a different path when you sign up to that newsletter.
Ooh, tell us about this path.
It's now, you signed up because you wanted to make some changes in your home. But now I'm going to help you make those changes. And here's some resources to make those changes. And then maybe you don't like the changes in your home and maybe you want to go ahead and get out of your home. And then that's how it started to turn out.
Isn't that the truth though? Like everybody, well, I should say everybody, but a lot of people, they say, oh, I got my house done. And then they put it up for sale.
Yeah. And I think the thing of it is when you reverse engineer that conversation is very different. And that's what was really intriguing to me because over the years, I've specialized in new construction, but everybody's like, well, which model did you get? And it's like, you can say, I got the Barrett model, or, I got the Vanderbilt. And then people are like, I just can't do anything with that entryway. And I'm like, no, you could do a lot of things with the introvert. Let me show you some examples of it. And I would share those with my clients privately. And that's how they started to do things. So when COVID hit and I needed like a little project, that's how I started Florida Homes and Living, because of COVID.
Yeah.
And I just shared the things that were most popular and connected to the clients that I work with. I kind of put them into blog posts.
Interesting. Okay. So you've got my brain spinning now. Now my brain is like on fire. And my question that I have is, when you think about your job, do you think of yourself as a marketer first and a real estate agent second?
No, I think of myself as a helper. And my creative component of me allows me to be able to market. So the marketing is not just about conversion. The marketing is about how to connect.
Okay.
And by connecting to people and servicing them, I'm able to get their attention and maybe help somebody who doesn't feel like they were fully represented in a transaction. How many times do we meet people that say, oh, my real estate agent sucks? And I want to provide something a little bit different for them, to say, you know what, this girl doesn't suck, and she really does care about people.
Yeah.
And
less transactional.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Very. No, I don't. And that's why that people kind of used to get frustrated with me with brokerages, because they're like, Nicole, you could be this, and Nicole, you could be that. I said, but if I can't be Nicole, then I really can't be any of those things.
Ooh, yeah. Oh,
so brokers in general, they're like, so when me coming aside was a really nice opportunity, because they let me do me.
One of the things you said earlier that kind of you slipped in, which I thought was a really interesting statement, is you says, as an introvert. And for me, I've trained, probably 4,000 real estate agents in my career. And there is this theme that there's a personality type or style that is going to be good at real estate. And it's this assumption that it's extroverts. And Chris Linzel, who's another writer for The Close, he and I were doing an interview one time, and I said, arguably, I think introverts are actually much more successful than most extroverts in this business. They don't tell you
how successful they are.
Say that again?
They don't tell you how successful they are. They're just a quiet person in the room. So I think a lot of the extroverts, they're just boisterous. They're very well known. And anything that you see over and over again, marketing will tell you that means that's the gold ticket, right? That's the person who typically has the major teams and things like that. But for introverts, I think we have a way of connecting to people, and we're super analytical. And I think that's a huge skill set that's needed in this. So we're not the one that's probably, swirling like from one topic to the next. We're honed in on that client, their needs, and what they're trying to accomplish very differently than probably an extrovert would be. Not saying
and going back to the conversation about relationships, versus transactional, right? Relational versus transactional. People confuse relational as I'm gonna show up at your house with a bottle of wine, and I'm gonna show up at your birthday party, versus I'm gonna differentiate myself and provide client care. And maybe I'm not going to show up at your birthday party.
Yeah, and I don't. Typically, I don't. I have two to go through the holidays, but they're really good friends of mine. But I remember I was doing a pop-by, that was a big thing back in the beginning when I started this. And the client called me and she said, Nicole, why would you pop by my house like that and leave the wine on my front porch? And I was like, well, I just wanted to wish you like a happy new year. I thought it'd be cool. She was like, no, it's kind of weird to me. Why would you do that? And I thought to myself, I was like, I'm never doing this again. I hated doing it anyway. But, she was like, you better serve me by providing me questions when I text you late at night, because she's a coder. And she traveled from multiple countries coding for different people. And she said, my schedule is crazy, but whenever I reach out to you, you're always available. She said, that's more of a value add to me than you dropping by some wine that I'm never going to drink and re-gift.
Yeah. And I think that there are personality styles that Popeyes work for,
Absolutely, they work for. But when you're intentionally marketing like I am, my client is very consistent to the point that two of my clients connected, one from Chicago, one from Boston, and they connected. And they were talking about their real estate agent and when they relocated here. And that's when we found out. They said, what's your real estate agent? It's very similar to my store. And it was me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And they're very good friends and their children are great friends. So they like have this whole thing going on. Is that not crazy?
Yeah.
That's the very same type of person. Very similar people.
Well, the other thing I noticed about your website and some of the research I did about you and through this conversation is it also sounds like your clientele is higher end. I don't want to put words in your mouth. I don't know if it's luxury or not, but showing pools, showing designs. You said my clients aren't necessarily worried about pricing. Is that true?
Yeah. So I think everybody has a budget, but for me, I'm trying to teach them how to maximize that budget at a potentially higher end. By relocating and focusing on relocation, I found it was super easy for me to handle. I'm a mom. I want to spend time with my son. I don't want to be running around crazy at 5, 6 o'clock. I want to get to his swim meets. So focusing on relocation created that. It wasn't intentional. Because they came in on Tuesday, they typically left by Thursday and they were under contract.
Oh, I love that. Yeah. And they're intentional, right? I'm here 3 days.
Yeah, we don't have I'm like in the trenches. So if people see me out showing houses, I look horrific. Yeah. It's like 3 days. We got to figure this out and, get it down. And as I started to get better with it, typically we would find a house in a day because I'd already done the virtual showings ahead of time. So we knew the community, we knew the neighborhood, we knew how everything was to be laid out. So for them, it was like, you know what? I don't want to go look at 10 homes. I want to go ahead, focus on that house. We know which one it is now. We've already connected to it virtually. We just need to see it in person to make our final selection. And then we want to go to the beach for the rest of the time with our kids.
Well, yeah. Yeah, right. They blend a vacation.
Yeah, so I create like a day. So they'll tell me ahead of time I like sushi or we like barbecue. So I'll create a day or 2 days of an itinerary for them with links to all of the locations. So again, that helped to build FloridaHomesAndLiving.com because I already had that information in play.
Wow, that's outstanding. So one of the things that happened in 2020 that extended to 2021 and might continue to 2022 is this idea that companies allowed people to start working from home. All of a sudden, everybody understands how to use Zoom. You remember when the pandemic first happened, people were like, Zoom, I don't know how to get on Zoom. And then now everybody knows what Zoom is. Everybody's very familiar and it's very natural now to go to a meeting and being on Zoom. You've got all these even you got people sitting in a room and then you got people on a monitor, in a business meeting. And that's perfectly normal today. Do you see, so what that did is that pushed people the ability to be able to work from home and then all of a sudden move out of areas like New York and Chicago or, and move to more, let's say lifestyle friendly areas.
Yes.
Do you see that trend continuing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just by the type of client that I would originally attract that's already were doing something similar to this, or they went into jobs that they could do that. Mm-hmm. So most of mine are very techie, engineer style people, but they also want to live full lives. They're full on. They're not the kind that's like, okay, this is the way life was issued to me and I'm going to go ahead and execute it. They are more like, I'm taking control of how I'm going to do this. And now we have opportunity.
Right. Yeah.
So for them, it's like, you know what? Our life in Florida is a lot different than what we thought. Even the California people that are moving here, they thought we sucked before. And then they're like, you know what? This ain't half bad. It's very similar to us, the weather style, if not better. And Orlando was one that they came to. I think more Californians moved down south from what I'm hearing from my networks of people. Mm-hmm. They love Boca Raton and Palm Beach County.
Yeah, that makes sense. I get that. Yeah. So is there any other trends that you see that a real estate agent should be paying attention to in 2022?
Yes. I think the Zillow thing kind of threw people off, and you see how quickly they recovered within 24 hours with the selling to another hedge fund.
No, be more specific about that. You're
Okay.
talking about them stop buying homes. Is that
Stop buying homes? But remember, it was this whole hoopla. Oh, Zillow just caved in. I'm like, these people are very smart. Don't think that this is not it. Like, okay, we're rolling over. It's like, okay, we're repositioning. And I think the agent needs to look at themselves more as a business entity versus an individual entity. And by doing that, you're going to think differently on how you're going to navigate through 2022. And also with the Zillow selling to a big company, half of their portfolio, a portion of their portfolio, I'm not exactly sure how much it was, but those hedge funds are operating within the real estate industry heavily that I don't think people are being highlighted as much. So it's almost like this shadow concept that's going on, but people that are agents that I talk to who are in like Arizona, Michigan, and Orlando probably it's been more heavily populated because our price points were in that median price range of $250 at first. But within a year, we're at $325.
So specifically, these hedge funds that are buying properties to hold them as long-term investments. Is that what you're? Yeah.
Correct. For the rental market, because our rental market is exploding. We don't have any conditions on our rental market here that you can continue to raise the pricing. We have no rent control like you would have in a New York City. And for an investor, they're looking at Florida specifically, and you have to look at your own state. But I think most times people need to go with the economic partnerships that are in their area, and it gives you a lot of clues as to what's really going on and not the noise that you may get from the media.
Yeah, I know an agent in Indianapolis, and he is selling them directly he goes out and buys the properties and then sells them directly to the hedge funds, and he makes his commission when he buys it, and then he makes a little bit of a margin when he sells it to the hedge fund. That's his whole business model.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying to you. But how many agents are actually understanding that? And by the time they do understand that, if hedge funds are buying more specific in certain zip codes here in Orlando, but I'm constantly connecting to those other agents, and I'm like, what trends are you seeing? And then when I develop this, I'm like, oh, we got some stuff going on.
Yeah.
But if you don't have something that's going to be very specific to potentially how you connect to your client and how they connect to you, I think next year will be very chilling that agents won't be in the numbers that they are right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. If agents don't get very, very specific with either an offering that they offer that a customer can't just generally get anywhere else, or a specific market or a specific demographic of real estate, like you're saying, like, lifestyle homes or, mountain homes, those kind of things, golf course homes. If you don't get super specific, you are going to get left out. Because in the absence of value, people will buy based on price, right?
Yeah, they're going to buy on price. And then what differentiates you from the iBuyer, the Zillow, the hedge fund? It's like, I can go sell my house right now to this guy, and in Orlando, they're paying, sometimes they're the highest comp that's in the community. So they are controlling our communities very differently. What in silence, though, they're moving in silence. And I think people have to get very triggered and focus on that, and using these last couple months to maybe not just effectively grow the business, but understand what's going on around them and how they can interwork what they're doing, similar to your, friend that's in Indianapolis.
Yep.
Because he's found a niche within this, and I think we can all be successful, but I think we have to figure out what play to our own strengths. Yeah.
So we got about 4 minutes left. So give us some tips. I'm a real estate agent. I want to get into content marketing. Give me some ideas on how do I even get started?
On the content marketing side, I would say, first of all, we need to know who the client is. What are they interested in reading? What information then lines up with the information you already have in your head? So we know real estate agents have so much information. It's crazy. But they have to be creative in how they share that. So we need to know how they're going to link up with their strengths against what the clients are looking for. And then within that, start to write, start to share it. And then I think they can probably start to see, oh, they don't like that. Oh, I thought that was awesome. Oh, that sucked. And then maybe rework it, but it's not a get quick client trick. It's not.
Get quick client trip.
No. You gotta be like passionate about it. Yeah. You want to break them. You want to see what they like, and then all of a sudden, I've been writing for a year. And how long did it take you to call me? Because I didn't want my friends. I didn't want any friends connecting to it. I didn't want any of my clients connecting to it. So I did this all undercover on the internet. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So those people who connect to it really like it.
So one of the things that blows people away or maybe gets them to quit is the haters, right? Like the comments.
I get so many like, what's wrong with that stove? I'm like, oh, it's a Viking stove. Like, have you not seen it? No, I'm not going to be sarcastic, but I'm like, that actually comes as a benefit to you. And I'm like, they're like, somebody answer this for me. Then I chime in because they think I don't answer. I go in, on Pinterest, I go in once a week and it's like tons of questions being asked. But channeling those questions is what created all of that Florida Homes and Living,
Nice. So Nicole Mickle, it has been an absolute joy. You're in Orlando, Florida. Of course, always looking for referral opportunities and opportunities to refer back and forth to our.
Yes, I definitely want to do that. I'm growing with that as well this year.
Yes.
I've referred out just as much as I closed this year.
Yes, you are our person in Orlando, and we appreciate you so much here at the Close Weekly. And thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate you.
No, thank you for having me. It was an awesome time. I love chatting about real estate and non-real estate stuff.
Awesome. Okay, thank you.